IT, if you can please start streaming and let us know when you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. You are live.
Chair Guida, we are live.
Thank you, Heather. Welcome, everybody. This is the Historic Districts Review Board hearing for July 9th, 2024. Amanda, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Chair Guida. Member Benvenu?
Here.
Member Madeline Medrano?
Here.
Member Mather?
Here.
Member Rios?
Excused?
Member Bescheid?
Excused?
And Member Vice Chair Guida.
Here.
Vice Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda from staff?
Yes, Chair Guida, the applicant for 275 East Alameda Street, they were going to be making an informational presentation. They said that it was going to take a little bit. So they have requested to be moved towards at the end of the agenda so that other folks can go first.
That's very nice. Okay. Any other changes?
No other changes.
Thank you, Heather. Board. Oh, yes.
One question. 403 San Antonio Street, the packet did not appear in PrimeGov. Do you all have your packets in front of you? I've consulted with Frank Rubelit and the city attorney. He's joining us online right now because he is unavailable to join us in person. And so he determined that even if it was not posted on PrimeGov, we could still hear the case. And this is for status review for 403 San Antonio Street.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. We were wondering about that. Board members, can we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Madeline Medrano, so moves.
Can I have a second, please?
Mather seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Benvenu?
Yes.
Member Mather?
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, we will hear 275 East Alameda at the end of the agenda tonight. Approval of minutes. I believe there are no minutes to approve. There were none posted. Okay, thank you, Heather. And then same with approval of findings of fact and conclusions of law. I didn't see any in the packet.
Sure, that is correct. The city attorney is working on them as we speak.
Okay, wonderful. We'll move on then to matters from the public. Any members of the public wishing to speak, not about a specific case, but anything in general? Anyone in the room? Please come down to the podium. Anyone online, Heather?
Chair, no hands are raised.
Okay, so no matters from the public. We'll move on to staff communications. The first item is the Santa Fe Public Library main branch exterior conditions assessment report.
First of all, I'd like to provide a note of congratulations to the Public Works team and specifically Karen Gross, who's the project administrator senior. They worked on an application for extra funding for the next phase of the library project, and that's the design phase. But if I wrong, correct me, Karen. So, but they got approximately $250,000 grant from the state for the continued restoration project of the library. You all have a report in your packet. Karen is available, Karen, if you want to come up, for any questions that you may have at this point.
Hi, Karen.
There's no presentation.
There's no presentation tonight.
If there's any questions.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Karen on the report? Yeah, terrific. Thank you for sharing this with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And then just one other quick housekeeping item. Dan Esquivel, who is with our current planning team, is a notary. We found out at the last minute that Izzy is on vacation and she's our other notary that has been helping us with these efforts. So you will be hearing from Dan as he swears people in, and he's sitting in last minute. So many thanks to Dan.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
And Mr. Acting Chair.
Yes, Frank.
Yes, I just wanted the record to reflect that I am participating in this meeting, but I had the misfortune of testing positive for COVID on Friday. I felt much better by the end of the day, Sunday, thanks to a resourceful wife who procured a prescription for Paxlovid real quick. And but per protocol, I can't go back into the office just yet, but I am watching and I am available for any points of legal clarification that you need.
Thank you, Frank. Glad you're feeling better and also glad that you're not here in the room.
Thank you. No problem.
Okay. Okay, so the next item under staff communications is 275 East Alameda. We're moving that to the end of the agenda. We'll move on to old business. Before we begin, I just want to note that if you disagree with the ruling of the board tonight, you have 15 days from the time when the findings of fact and conclusions of law have been approved to appeal that to governing body. Okay, we'll move on to the first case. Heather, this is your case. Are your applicants in the room?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
And then IT, if you can go ahead and put the PowerPoint up, I appreciate that. And I'm sorry if this PowerPoint is very basic, but ran into some time constraints. So the application is for a status review for the structure single-family residence located at 403 San Antonio Street, which is located in the downtown and east side historic district. It's on the southeast corner of San Antonio Street and Acequia Madre, directly across from Acequia Madre School. So the consultant who produced the recommended status, recommended non-contributing. There's a lot of information as to why that non-contributing status was a recommendation. Staff reviewed the application it is possible that a contributing status is warranted in this case because the additions are to the rear and to the side of the historic building. The historic building's vocabulary is present and discernible. And so staff is making the recommendation of a contributing status with primary facades number 1 and 2, which is highlighted in blue here, which is the extent of the historic buildings, the north and west elevations of the historic building, plus the front yard wall, which is a distinguishing characteristic that was there historically as well. It goes from, and I'm sorry, this picture isn't the best, but it's to the south of the existing building and it has an arch entryway. You can see in your packet, there are lots of photos related to that. So staff recommends that the status remain as contributing and that the west and the north facades be considered primary, as well as that portion of the wall adjacent to on the front side, on the eastern side of the project, not the one at the street, but adjacent to the building itself. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Heather. Just to be clear, staff is disagreeing with the recommendations of the Higbee report.
That is correct.
Okay. And the point that was made, and is this in the report, is that, that the house had been altered, I think it was described as a clumsy Spanish Revival makeover of what was perhaps a 1920s farmhouse. Is that correct?
Chair, yes, that is correct. But with reference to the perhaps is what concerned me, and a lot of the windows that are in the main house are historic wooden windows, 2/2s with distinguishing characteristics. And so that was the concern of staff. In addition, the historic house is pretty visible in the overall scheme of things.
Okay. And just so I'm clear too, I think another point that was made is that, it's neither farmhouse nor Spanish Revival bungalow, which is characteristic of that street and that district. What would be the basis for a contributing recommendation in terms of what does it contribute to the district?
So Chair Guida, as we've had discussions in the historic zoning code update committee, not everything needs to be the same. And those that are historic and distinct and unique are a record of its time and place and is something that should be allowed to be distinct and unique. So if that changes were made to the building, then it would have to be in concert with the unique character. We don't want everything looking the same in downtown East Side Historic District. Those standards are older, recent Santa Fe style. So if alterations were made to this building, which doesn't classically fall into that line, then there could be concerns and problems with an addition or a change to the building that doesn't keep that distinct character.
Okay, understood. Board members, questions for Heather? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Chair Guida, and thank you, Heather, for the report. I think you said you're recommending to be maintained as contributing, but isn't it non-contributing now? We upgrading?
Chair Guida, member Bienvenue, I think I misspoke, yes.
Okay. Okay, just want to be clear what our task is tonight. So just looking at this, what you call the historic core, we've got the two really visible facades. So one on San Antonio, one on Acequia Madre. Just going on those two facades, what is historic? Is everything historic on those two facades at this point, even the alterations?
Chair Guida, member Bienvenue, yes, there may have historically been some alteration in the arches of the windows. We don't know what the original windows were. And that is sort of a unique characteristic, but everything to my knowledge, and I can defer to the applicant to be sure, is historic, including the gable ends as well.
Okay. And I think of San Antonio and that area as being eclectic. Would you agree with that?
Chair Guida, member Bienvenue, that's correct. And this was built by the builder Society, named Sosaya. And this area went from being farmland to sort of the first classic developer framework in which there was a builder that built many houses on the street, I think up to 5 on this street and other areas as well. So you see
they're all a little different, aren't they? He didn't have just a style. It wasn't like Stam Home. As I understood it, and when I read about that at one time, I think all of his were very personal designs, weren't they?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
And they were typically for rent, but he did provide for diversity in the streetscape, even if the lots were somewhat regular themselves.
And the wall, so is there a picture where we can see exactly what portion of the front wall you're referring to as being proposed to be contributing?
One moment, let me get a picture of that for you really quick. I'm sorry for the delay.
Okay.
Okay, the applicant might not be happiest with this photograph, but Ramon took her picture. So sorry, Stephanie, but let me share the picture. So they were meeting on site and the wall, you can see it extends from the gable end, curves down. This gate is not historic, but this portion of the wall is there since the 1950s approximately.
Okay. And so we're not designating, or you're recommending that the front wall that's aligned with the street is not being recommended?
That is correct.
Do we know anything about the history of that wall?
That was not addressed in the HDRB.
Okay. So it could be historic, but we don't know. Or do you
Well,
think not?
I'll defer to the applicant. Maybe
Okay.
they know better than me.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, let's have the applicant come down and be sworn in.
Hello. Please speak clearly into the mic. Raise your right hand. State your name and address for the record.
Feel free to lift it up to the edge there if you want. So
If you can say it again so I
Uh,
can get the,
Stephanie Deutsch, and then 1334 Pacheco Street, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
The applicant sworn in.
Thank you. Hi, Stephanie. Do you agree with staff's recommendations?
I don't, because on the north facade, right next to the yellow section that is considered the additions. There was originally, before 2007, there was only 2 windows on the lower part of the blue area that's inset, kind of closest the northeast corner. And in 2007, there was an addition, and at that time, they added 2 new windows. So there's, now originally there was only 2 windows on this area, and now there's 4 windows. So 2 of those are historic and 2 of them are not, and they were made to replicate the historic windows. So yes, I do not agree. And looking at the HCPI and just seeing from 1991 and again in 2024 in May, they both recommended the same things, that there's been so many additions and changes to the building throughout history that it's really hard to characterize the building and also to understand where you make the line of like what should be deemed as important.
Thank you. So your preference would be to maintain the non-contributing status of the building?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Board members, questions for the applicant? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Chair Guida. Would it be possible to get a picture up of the window of the facade that the applicant was just referencing?
It's in the packet, but Stephanie, if I'm correct, what you're describing is the north facade, the very east end of it is an addition.
Yes, so on page 12, if you look at the HCPI packet, it shows, right where the corner is where A meets the historic core. That's where originally there was only 2 windows, and then in 2007, they went through H board and it passed to do the addition A. And that's when they added 2 windows onto the north facade as well.
Yes, thank you, Madeline. Page 26 also highlights those 2 additional windows and the addition.
Yes, those are those are new windows to look like the old ones.
Any other questions from board members for the applicant? Okay, with that, we'll go to public comment. Members of the public wishing to speak on this case, please come down and be sworn in. You'll have 2 minutes for your testimony.
Please raise your right hand, state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Eddy. My address is number 14 Avenida Campo Verde.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do. Thank you.
Hi, John.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wanted to investigate a little bit something that staff mentioned here. And I leave it to the board, obviously, to suss out the technical details vis-a-vis the desires of the owner. You mentioned that this house was built by a Sosoya. Was his name Frank Sosoya? Do you know? I'm putting you on the spot and I apologize about that. My second question regarding that Is this the same family of Sosoya that Sosoya Lane is named after?
So, Chair, members of the board, Augustino Sosaya is the father, but there is a Frank Sosaya as well that was involved. So, but I'm going through the family history there, but yes, it is associated with the Sosaya family that was, the street was named.
Josiah, thank you. The reason I bring this up is that I do think that in the history of what we do here with the H board and our delineation of status, the builders of these buildings were very important. They're very important to our history. The fact that this is a very eclectic neighborhood is accentuated by the fact that this family built houses with their own flavor to them. So the attachment of this family to this house to me is very important. And I think that also lends itself towards a higher status. And it's something that we need to continue to maintain in our city, and especially in the historic district of the East Side, so that we have a deeper understanding of how these neighborhoods and these houses evolved. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Heather, anyone online wishing to speak?
Yes, Chair Guida, Stephanie Benenato. Stephanie, you may unmute. Please state your name and address for the record and be sworn.
Stephanie Benenato, P.O. Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
MD, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Yes. So I hope that you designate this as contributing and that you follow staff's recommendation. I also agree with Mr. Eddy about the importance of the building and how and who the builder is and how that contributes to the character or the status of the building. And I'm not really clear about these two windows on the north side, whether they were put into existing openings and are replacement in kind windows, or whether this was a new addition that was allowed. And if that was so in 2007, I'm wondering why there wasn't a status review at that point, because by then I would consider that building to have been historic. So I'm not quite understanding that, and I would ask the board again to get more details. Plus, by the way, we cannot see any of these photographs of the house or of the gate. And if they could be put up on screen while you're looking at them, that would be really helpful to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there anyone else wishing to speak?
Chair, no.
Okay. Thank you. So it comes back to the board. I guess, I'll just say, and I'm certainly not making motions or voting tonight, but I think one of the things that, we often run into on some of these status cases is the difficulty that the current code creates by not having a statement of significance for our districts, right? To me, while I agree that it's important to have diversity in the historic districts, and there is remarkable diversity in the historic districts, it's very unclear from our code and what we have written down as a community what the purpose of the historic statusing in these districts is, whether it is to preserve examples of the style. Are we interested in a discussion of preserving representative examples of the style that formulate and create the look of a district or a streetscape, or are we interested in other things such as the age of the building, exceptional cases, and other instances? It may be both, but we don't have a whole lot of clarity around that, and it's hopefully something that we can come to in some of these code rewrites. But I will throw it back to the board for further discussions or perhaps a motion. Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Chair Guida. I guess to me, when we're applying our ordinance, the ordinance asks us to determine whether this is a contribution to the character of the district. And So that's a broad, it encompasses all the things I think that you just said, as long as they're historic characteristics. And one of the characteristics in this area, I do think, is the fact that it's not simply Pueblo revival style or territorial. It is eclectic, but they are all related to some of those more defined styles. And I could be mistaken, but I think that the Acequia Madre National Historic District designation does refer to the Sosoya houses, all of them in this district, as being important features of the area, because they're not just the 5 that were mentioned on this side of the street, but they're throughout the area, including on Sosoya Lane. So to me, there's no question, but the house itself, it has all the attributes of a contributing structure, except the question is, has it been modified significantly? I think that's the only real issue before the board. I guess I'd come back to staff and say, because I am inclined to think that it is contributing and that the 2 facades you've identified are the historic core, but those 2 windows give me a little bit of concern. And they definitely do, if that's an addition that is designed to just look like the original structure, and that it's attached to what would become tonight a primary facade, I would prefer to exclude that. How does staff feel about excluding the 2007, if that's the right date, addition on the north facade from the primary facade?
Chairmember Bienvenu, yeah, I have the file up now. I thought the windows were just, I was not unclear based on the context and the material provided in 2007. So certainly excluding that would be within reason, for sure.
Okay.
And we have excluded portions of facades before as well. So I don't think that would be out of the question.
Okay, and I forgot to ask the applicant the question about the front wall. Does the applicant have any information that would help us understand the history and the antiquity of the wall?
About that, I think it was unclear when our historian looked through the history of it, he couldn't find the records of where it came from.
Okay. Thank you for that. If there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion. There is further
Oh,
discussion.
sorry. Member Aguilar Medrano.
You, Chair Guida. I also had the same question about the front wall. I'm looking at the 1966 aerial photograph, and there does appear to be a wall in that same alignment in that photograph. The other thing I was looking at is the wall has 2 cutouts on its eastern end that are that narrow arched, a narrow arched cutout that match the window the window cutouts. And so I'm curious, again, I don't know if that was original or if that was just something that was replicated to match the windows. Heather, do you have any more thoughts on this front wall in your research?
Chair, Member Aguilar Medrano, there is a wall that's on the 1966 photograph, although we don't know if it's been altered with that gateway or that gate entry. Certainly along that streetscape, lower walls were very common. So it would be up to the board, because that is a question, was it altered? Up to the board to consider whether it's just the lower portion of the wall that we would consider as historic, because it is evident in 1966 and 73.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, so I would lean toward like the same approach of having that wall upgraded to contributing, because I think the shorter height of it is contributing to the neighborhood, but excluding any non-historic material, since we don't know much about the gate and it very well could likely not be historic.
So are we saying that we do know for a fact that the wall is historic? We just don't know its exact. What don't we know? We know that there was a wall there in 1967. Do we know whether it was we don't know if it was the same wall or the same height or anything beyond that?
Chair Member Bienvenue, we don't know anything other than what's in the aerial photographs.
I'm just not sure from my perspective that that's a sufficient record to be able to designate it as contributing. And my inclination might be more to give it no status at this time with a note that no alteration should be made to that without a status review. So that we can have more information or whatever board is here in the event that renovations are desired on the wall.
Yeah, I could do that. I'm looking at it further and I can see like on the east side in the 1966 aerial, there's an opening where there is now a vehicular gate. So it appears to match. Height wise, I don't know. Just looking at plan view, the layout appears to match, but I would be fine leaving it undesignated.
Okay.
So do we have a board member willing to make a motion? Bienvenue.
Okay, in case 2024-008499 HDRB 403 San Antonio Street, I would move consistent with staff's recommendation and the further information presented in the staff report, the applicant's packet, and the testimony tonight that the historic status of the structure and the wing wall on the west side be excluding the non-historic gate, it does upgraded to contributing. And that facades 1 and 2 should be designated as primary, excluding the 2007 addition on the north facade. And additionally, that the based on the insufficiency of the record at this time, that the street wall will remain non-statused, but that no renovations or demolition of the wall take place without a further status review.
Aguilar Medrano will second.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Benvenu,
Yes.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Chair Guida, your motion has passed.
You. Okay, we'll move on to the next case. Next case is 636 Garcia Street, units 2 and 3. Lanny, this is your case as your applicant in the room.
Yes.
Great, thanks.
Can you hear me? This is case 2024-8478 HDRB for 636 Garcia Street, units 2 and 3 for status review. 636 Garcia Street consists of 3 units, which are now condos with separate owners for each unit. The units are located on the west side of the road, south of Camino de las Animas and Johnson Lane. The multifamily residence at 636 Garcia Street is a 3-unit compound with no historic status assigned to it. The property is located in the downtown and east side historic district. The structure was constructed in the early 1950s by adding 2 dwellings, an apartment and a 1-bedroom rental to an existing 1940s garage. What was formerly the garage became Unit 3. And in the 1950s, the 3 units were associated with the main residence to the south, which was split from the lot in 2021 and addressed as 640 Garcia Street. Units 2 and 3 at 636 Garcia Street are constructed of adobe in a vernacular style with stucco walls, concrete foundation, and is a single level. The roof consists of a combination of flat, gabled, and shed roofs. Windows throughout the structure are wood with a combination of single hung casement, combination picture, sliding and fixed windows. Doors consist of single leaf wood and double doors with full light plank, half light, and divided glass. Unit 2 is 1,032 square feet and shares a common wall with Unit 3 on the west and a common wall with Unit 1 on the east. The south elevation is the front of the structure and looks into small courtyards and consists of an entry door and windows in the bedroom, kitchen, and living room. Some of the windows have been replaced at an unknown date, and it is unclear if the openings are original to the structure. The north elevation includes newer windows, several non-historic openings, including a long combination picture window on the more eastern portion of the unit in the living room, and single light casements in the bathroom, and divided light casement at the bedroom further to the west. Unit 3 is 754 square feet, shares a common wall with Unit 2 on the east and the neighboring property to the west. The south elevation looks into a small brick courtyard. The east end is most likely part of the original small house and has a full light door in the living room, flanked by modern casement windows. To the west was likely the earlier garage and includes a half-light door and windows arranged in a stepped manner. The north has gabled and flat roof sections. The gabled area on the east has a pair of modern glass doors opening to the living room, while the flat roof portion on the west has a pair of wood sliding windows in the bedroom. There are no known previous cases for the condominium structure. However, it is apparent from the window assessment that the windows and doors are all non-historic, with most replacements during 1991 and 1999. The applicant requests for a status review of the residential structure at units 2 and 3 and designation of primary facades if applicable. And though the property is no longer associated with the primary structure at 640 Garcia Street, 636 Garcia Street units 2 and 3 have historic integrity of their own. They are constructed of adobe and are representative of how historic buildings were expanded over time. Staff believes the south elevation, facade 2 of unit 3, is the primary facade due to the historic width of the door and the layout of the fenestrations and the various roof lines. The south side, facades 2 and 4 of unit 2, are the primary facades due to the inset of the fenestrations and the various roof line of the structure. This is the site plan and floor plans. And this is the facade map here for you. Staff recommends the historic status of the structure be designated as contributing, and the south facade, facade 2 of unit 2, and the south facades, facades 2 and 4 of unit 3, be designated as the primary facades for SFCC section 14-5.2C designation of significant and contributing structures.
Thank you, Lanny. What was John Murphy's recommendation?
Non-contributing.
Based on what?
The replacement of all of the fenestrations.
He said that, that the structures do not possess sufficient architectural interest, nor do they have the integrity to be eligible for contributing status. And that the primary historic association, as you pointed out, with 640 Garcia has been severed. And that's why he recommended maintaining a non-contributing status for these buildings.
There's no status currently, so it's not.
Oh, sorry, no status currently. Thank you for that. But you disagree with that?
I do. I disagree.
And the basis for that is the type of construction being adobe, change over time, and you are recommending these facades minus the non-historic windows, correct?
Yes.
Board members, questions for staff on this? None. And may we have the applicant come forward and be sworn?
You'll see him now. Oops.
Maybe what we can do is postpone this to the end of the agenda.
Okay. Can we have a motion from the board to that effect, that we can move this case to the end of the agenda, but before the 275 East Alameda informational presentation? Member Benvenu.
Moved.
Second, please.
Madrano seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Aguilar Madrano?
Yes.
Member Mather?
Yes.
Member Benvenu? The motion has been moved.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. The first case under new business is 1666 Cerro Gordo. Lanny, this is your case. Is your applicant in the room? Are you sure?
She's right there. Sorry about that.
I'm just teasing.
Okay, I deserve
Okay, let's have your case report.
This is case 2024-8336 for 1666 Cerro Gordo Road for new construction and remodel. 1666 Cerro Gordo is located on the south side of Cerro Gordo, just east of Paseo de Florencio. The property at 1666 Cerro Gordo is located at the top of Cerro Gordo Road at the head of a private driveway. It and all the other homes on the dirt lane sit below grade on a terraced bench dating from the area's agricultural use. The Acequia Cerro Gordo, which allowed this agriculture, courses along the backside of this house. A tall stone retaining wall holds back the earth underneath Cerro Gordo, and abutting against the wall is a small stone building, which was once a garage. South of this is a screen of junipers, with the land stepping down to another terrace where the house is located. The 420 square foot stone garage unit is listed as significant to the historic district. The stone garage was constructed prior to 1948 with inset vigas, a large buttress on the southeast, and a smaller buttress on the southwest. The door in the garage was replaced after the 1983 survey. The single-family residence with garage at 1666 is 3,345 square feet. It's listed as non-contributing to the downtown and east side historic district. The main residence has had numerous additions and reached its current compound footprint by the late 1960s. After 1978, portals were added across the north facade and a sunroom was constructed on the east elevation. The house went through a major renovation in 2000, during which the windows were refurbished and replaced. The carport was reconstructed and new doors were added. Now the applicant proposes the following exterior alterations. I'm going to be walking through the property, starting with the significant stone building, proceeding to the non-contributing main residence and rear lot changes, and then back up to the new guest house. As you can see from the proposed site plan, there are many changes being proposed. On the significant stone building, the applicant proposes to replace as needed the glazing, flashing, and weatherproof the existing skylight while retaining the skylight opening in height. Install a mini split condenser to the west of the structure along the retaining wall with line sets penetrating the existing small opening in the building wall. The condenser unit and lines will not be publicly visible. They will also replace the French doors on the south elevation of the stone building with two new solid wood Zagwan style doors. The doors will be stained in a honey mead color. And those are the only proposed changes to that stone building. On the main residence, they are going to replace all existing posts and existing north and south portals with new 10-inch diameter posts, paint all posts and beams in a coastal plane, paint the door and window trims and shutters throughout, and restucco the existing house with cementitious in adobe color. On the north elevation, they're going to remove the existing window on the north in what will be the new pantry location and infill it to create an exterior nicho, and replace the kitchen window on the north elevation with a 10 by 3.5 inch divided light window. On the east elevation, they're going to remove the exterior door at the kitchen under the portal and replace it with a divided light window. Replace both windows adjacent to the stove looking out into the courtyard with divided light windows, adding exterior shutters to these two new windows. The size of those windows is changing. Install a a window in the new primary bath on the east elevation where one does not currently exist, and replace the windows and door in the sunroom and infill the remaining area. On the south elevation, they're going to extend the south portal by 100 square feet and install 2 new posts, install a skylight in the library room, and replace the windows in the sunroom on the south elevation and infill the remaining space. This is the west elevation of the main residence and includes the proposed bridge and open living area, which are coming up next. This is our accessory structure. They're going to construct a 383 square foot outdoor living room with a stone fireplace and chimney to a height of 11 feet 7 inches, where the maximum allowable height is 16 feet 6 inches. There will be stuccoing in cementitious adobe, and all posts and beams will be painted in coastal plain. They're going to construct a bridge over the acequia. The bridge will have a wrought iron railing and a wood pergola above it. The pergola will be stained in honey mead. The posts will be 10-inch in diameter. The bearing beams will be 8-inch by 10-inch. The roofing will consist of lattices that vary in size with a 4.5-inch maximum diameter. Site changes will include constructing 48-inch tall coyote fence screening southeast of the driveway, installing 2 condenser units with 48-inch tall coyote fence screens, constructing 36-inch tall stone wall at the new guest parking space on the east side of the property. This is going to be similar to the existing stone terrace across from the main house. They're going to construct a 95 square foot wood pergola located on the south of the property. The pergola will be stained in honey mead. The posts will be 10 inches in diameter to match the rest of the house. The bearing beams will be 8-inch by 8-inch, and the roofing will consist of lattices that vary in size with a maximum 4.5-inch maximum diameter. Install a hot tub, replace the fence at the hot tub location with a 48-inch tall wrought iron fence with self-closing gate. And then we go to the guest house. The guest house will have a garage. The applicant proposes to construct a 1,500 square foot guest house with garage to a height of 12 feet, where the maximum allowable height is 16 feet 6 inches on the north of the property. This will be right next to the stone building. Posts and beams in the portals on the east elevation will be stained in honey mead with decorative painted traditional motifs. The design is still to be determined. And they will be painted in coastal plain. A stone fireplace and chimney will be located on the east elevation. The pergola on the west elevation will be constructed with 8x8 wood beams. And the door and window trims will be painted in the coastal plain, and the stucco will be cementitious adobe. These are the typical elevations for the fences, walls, and gates. The applicant has also provided us with color samples. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds that the application complies with sections 14-5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts, and 14-5.2E, downtown and east side design standards.
Thank you, Lanny. Board members, any clarification questions for Lanny? Lanny, can you tell us what the public visibility of these improvements is?
The majority of them are in the rear of the property, so most of them are not going to be visible. The guest house will be obviously very visible on Cerro Gordo, but the ones to the main house are most of it's to the rear of the building, so you won't be able to see most of that.
Thank you for that. So the north, particularly the north and perhaps the east elevation of the proposed guest house will be highly visible from Cerro Gordo. They're
Yes.
right on the street, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Can we have your applicant come forward, please?
Please raise your right hand. Speak clearly into the mic. State your name and address for the record. Do you solemnly, name and address.
Hunter Redmond, 612 Old Santa Fe Trail.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
I, Hunter. Let's get you set up. So Lanny gave us a pretty thorough presentation on project, which has a lot of moving parts. What else do you have to tell us?
Thank you, Chair Guida. Good evening, board members. And thank you, Lanny. So now my presentation is going to be quite short. I will go through it as quickly as possible so that we can have time for other people and for comments. The owners of this property need additional guest rooms for their grown children to come and visit them. And so looking at the existing main house here, you can see that it's bound on the south side by the acequia and on the north side by the retaining walls. So there's no room to add on to the existing main residence. That is why they're proposing the casita with an attached one-car garage on the northwest side of the property. They also would like to have a little more outdoor entertaining space. The existing portal is quite lovely, but it's not quite big enough for a dining room table for a family. So they want to do an outdoor room, and we are proposing that outdoor room be in this lovely courtyard that's just to the south of the main building. And we would like to connect that via a bridge and a pergola. So it feels like it's a continuous structure and they really engage each other. It'll also give an opportunity for the main house to start engaging that courtyard, which is much lower than the main house. And lastly, they would like to put a small hot tub and a small pergola down here on a lower terrace. I do want to note that we are creating a new parking space here. It's kind of an existing parking area, but it's quite steep. So we want to build a small retaining wall and pull the grade up. And the retaining wall would be similar to sort of the existing really beautiful historic retaining walls. As Lanny said, in the main residence, we have just a few exterior modifications, replacing some of the columns, and we're going to have a wonderful nicho. Will give us a great design opportunity. The existing little sunroom there on the east side, it's really, really hot because it's just all glass right now. So we want to reduce the amount of glass. We want to put in new windows that tie in with the existing windows in the main house and make that into a nice office space. In the outdoor room, we do have this bridge and pergola connecting the outdoor room to a new portal addition. I just want to note that we have approval from the Saragordo Acequia Association for this design. We have presented it to them, and I will just show you our one and only rendering so you can see that what we're proposing is that the structure of the bridge, the supports will be at least 5 feet away from the acequia on either side. The height of the bottom of the bridge is going to be at least 2 feet above the existing acequia. And I have true appreciation for acequias, and I think it's utmost important that we respect it and that we do everything we can to make sure that it stays safe and is not disturbed, and the contractor and the owner are on the same page as I am. So I wanted to make that note about this particular part of the additions. And there's another little image to show you how the acequia will still be really visible under this bridge. As for the casita, I just want to note a few items about the design. In the casita, we have this fabulous historic uh, uh, stone building and then the adobe existing main house. So for the casita, what we've done is we've taken a hints from both of those structures, and we have some battering of walls and a little bit of stone on the casita. But the casita is also going to be its own entity. The casita is the one building that we're like to have the beams that will be carved and painted, and the owners have a really wonderful design aesthetic that that allows for color and life. And I think the casita is going to be a really special structure. And with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Hunter. Just a couple questions, and I'll say that I think that the casita is rather handsome, and would be a nice addition to the streetscape. And I think even the outdoor room is quite nice as well. It certainly complements the architecture of the existing house. The first question is about the stone masonry. There's a lot of distinctive rubble stone masonry on this property right now, and I'm just curious as to, are you recreating that same type of full masonry construction, or are we expecting a veneer? What's the product that's being used?
So we had a long meeting with the contractor and the owner on site. I do not want to do a veneer. He doesn't either. He is passionate about sort of the detailing of this particular project and intends to use full stone that will tie in with the stone there. If you look at the existing significant stone structure, you'll see that it's actually not one type of stone. It changes as it grows. And so we're not going to match that exactly, but it will definitely be in the flavor and character of the stone that is on the property, because there's so many beautiful stone walls, but they're all slightly different.
Right. A bit.
I also would like to note really quickly about the visibility of the guest house. The guest house actually is visible if you stand on the side of this, because I just drove by there this afternoon to make sure. We stand on the side of Cerro Gordo, you're really looking down on the roof. And you'll see a little bit of the north facade as you look down. You'll also see a little bit of the east facade as you look down, but that's the visibility. There will be absolutely no public visibility of the outdoor room or the pergola where the hot tub is.
Okay. And while we're on the roof, if I may, what color is that roof? Is there any equipment on that roof? Since it is so visible.
No, there's no equipment on the roof. We are going to have a condenser that will be on the ground. We have a couple of condensers, and those will be screened with low coyote fences with undulating tops, and no other equipment on the roof. What we do have on the roof, though, is we do have a couple of skylights.
Okay. Thank you. And then what was going to be my second question is now my third. If you wouldn't mind going back to the render of the bridge. I'm assuming the material of the stringer and the edge of the decking is steel.
Yeah, right now we're showing it as steel because we would like for the depth of that to be as minimal as possible. So rather than going with wood, it would have to be much more bulky. I'd like it to be 6 inches if possible, which it probably could be. So it'd be steel and then wood treads.
Good. I think it's handsome, and I think in treating it so minimally, it makes it clear that the stair, the railing, and the deck of the bridge is kind of not architecture, right? It's kind of a kind of garden structure in between. And I'm just wondering about the white painted beams above, and maybe if there's the opportunity to do something similar, either in color or in material, that might downplay that connector to being kind of not architecture, still being there, of course, but just kind of receding the way that the bottom piece does. You'd be open to that.
Interesting. Yeah, we have right now the beams are wood and they are painted in the same. It actually looks much whiter here than it will be if we look at it. We could pull up the samples again. It's more of a sagey green, like a light sagey green. The color palette was drawn from when I was on Canyon Road today, we counted 11 different projects. It's that similar kind of sagey green with the Adobe color. That's an interesting comment, though. If we did that, I would almost want it to be metal as well.
Me too. And I say that just because
Yeah.
it doesn't have columns, it doesn't really kind of convey the same things that your portal does.
Right.
There might be a way to do it. I'll go back to the board and see if there are any questions from board members. Member Aguilar Medrano.
Thank you, Chair Guida. Since we're on the bridge anyway, I know the Cerro Gordo Ditch Association gave you approval, so I'm assuming they saw the drawings that we're looking at tonight.
They did. They have not seen the rendering because we just finished that a couple hours ago.
Okay.
But they saw the plans and the elevations.
Okay, because I know one of their notes was that they didn't want it to be overly wide, and the new one is wider than the existing one that it's placing, but they were okay with that as
Yes.
shown.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know the width of it offhand? It doesn't say on the drawings.
I do not have a dimension on it, but it's probably close to 5 feet, which is actually similar to the existing bridge that's going over.
Yeah, it looks just
Yeah.
a tad bit wider than the one to the right of it, but not by much. But you say around 5 feet.
Yes.
Perfect. And then, yeah, I don't know what the right solution is, but I had similar thoughts to Chair Guida. If we want to go back to the perspective, yeah, something about all of the vertical, maybe the other one, Heather, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, something feels a bit busy to me with the vertical railing and the latias on top of, I guess, the sage. So it's one, yeah, I think it's the latias. I'm wondering if that can be simplified. I'm curious where this discussion goes, but I do like the light nature of the bridge, and the project overall, I think, is quite lovely.
Any other board members, comments? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair is fine.
I knew it was going to come out that way. Thank you, Chair Guida. And thank you for the presentation and for all the work you've put into this. I guess a couple of thoughts I have on this. Most of this in the back is completely not visible to the public, but it is on an historic acequia. It's probably visible from properties on either side and maybe some even further around. I have no strong objection to anything that's going on here. It's a lot that you're doing in this back area, but it does strike me as being, especially given the history of that acequia that you're crossing, it has, to me, a little too strong of a contemporary feel, especially the way the rock work is shown in the rendering. That is really high quality squared off rock work that is not something you would ever see in an acequia. And the building itself looks like it's squared off corners. Is it intended to be?
It's the program itself. Actually,
That's often the case.
that acequia rock exists. That's the existing, and it looks nothing like.
Oh, so
It's-
this is your attempt to actually, you're leaving
Yes.
the rock work that's.
Oh, absolutely. We're not touching the acequia.
I see. What about the structure itself? Will it have rounded corners, or are you squaring them off? I know it's hard to do in a rendering.
They will be rounded
Okay.
to resemble the existing main residence. Absolutely.
So the only other, I guess, question I have, and you put a lot of work into the guest house, and I think it's a nice design. There's two things that I think are off to me. It feels, it's almost such a nice design, it feels a bit over-designed for that particular location, because you're, we just designated that stone structure as significant, which we rarely do. And the reason for that is because it is such a handmade, old, primitive structure. And I know you're doing a bit of echoing with the stone chimney. I can't think of another word, so I'm going to say it feels a little gimmicky to me, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It just feels a little too much. And it also doesn't feel harmonious, even though I get the idea that you're trying to pick up the stonework and you would probably be careful not to make it look too modern. In my opinion, you'd never see exterior stone chimneys in our historic district unless they slip through the board somehow. You see them, a lot of contemporary buildings have exterior stone chimneys. You see them in Las Campanas and Monte Sereno and lots of other places. You see them on old buildings that are in the Rocky Mountains and are log cabins. They really are almost, to my mind, never, if ever, on the exterior of an adobe style, traditional style, handmade structure. And along with that, the battered walls seem a little overly battered to me. So, and the only reason I think it really matters is because it's such a particular location next to that stone retaining wall and that stone structure, and it's visible from the road, and the chimney will definitely be visible because it's going to be protruding over the height of the road. So my question to you is, how strongly are you attached to the stone chimney and the battered walls?
Well, I do know that the owners they want the casita to have character. And yes, it could be simplified and made to look more like the main house, sure. But it's nice that it does give a little bit of a nod to the structure next to it. I like a little bit of a nod and acknowledgement. And no, they don't have to be quite so battered. And I appreciate your comments. And I've thought about this because this is a particularly hard place to build when you're building next to such a cool, significant structure. What do you do? That's kind of a nerve-wracking puzzle for an architect. Which way do you go? So I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think on the battering, yeah, I completely understand why you're looking to do something interesting with the building. That's natural. You don't want it to be boring. And I think a slighter batter would be better for me, or perhaps just partial batters, just sort of what's the word I'm looking for? A rampart to hold it up, maybe not the entire wall, because that kind of severe battering is really non-existent, right? And then a one-story adobe building, or because there'd just be no purpose for anyone to ever do that if you're just building adobe on your house on your property. So it's sort of it's a very strong designed element. But I think if it was made more subtle, that it could be an interesting approach. I still think, though, that the chimney would be better if it were stuck in, my personal opinion. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bevidu. If there are no further comments from the board, we'll move to public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to speak on this case, please come on down.
Hello again.
Hi.
Don Eddie. Hi. Thank you. I really appreciate the comments by Board Member Bienvenu. I do agree on the battering detail. And just to give an insight that usually battered walls in Santa Fe are a result of continuing to having to replaster walls as the mud comes down. They basically slap it up and it ends up thicker at the bottom of the wall. So I agree that this accentuation of that detail is not really characteristic of Santa Fe architecture. And I am very grateful that the applicant has designed this bridge the way they have over the acequia because it respects the easement of 5 feet either side of the center of an acequia, a legal easement, with no structures within that essential 10-foot. And I think the use of steel there is a very creative way to make that bridge span that distance. If they were trying to do this with wood, I don't think they'd ever pull it off. So I think it is an appropriate use of steel. I would prefer, and I think the applicant prefers, to leave the beam above on that bridge as wood, and I would agree with that as well. And I also think, since it's not really visible from the public, I think that they've done a really beautiful job. It's a very special house, and they're accentuating. One last thing, with the stonework on the chimney, I would suggest that bringing up a stem wall of stone, vernacular stone, and then stuccoing above that might temper and still give them that flavor of being echoing the garage stonework, the vernacular work, but tempering it by stucco above. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Anyone else in the room wishing to speak? Heather, anyone online wishing to speak?
Yes, Chair Benenato, Stephanie Benenato would like to speak. She has previously been sworn.
Thank you. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, here I am, Stephanie Benenato. I'm glad that Member Bienvenu made the remarks that he did about the guest unit. I have a concern that it seems too close to the stone building, which is significant. And that means all the facades are primary. And it seems, I think, to overpower it. I'm also concerned beyond what was stated about the garage being to the front of the guest unit. It's certainly not historic or in keeping. And I just wonder if there's a way to redesign that so it's not visible from the front of the guest unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Heather, anyone else online?
No, Chair Guida.
Okay, back to the board for any further discussion, or preferably a motion, and one that would address the issues and a path forward on the issues that we discussed tonight: the battering, stone chimney, and material and/or color on the pergola across the acequia. Member Benvenuto.
Chair Guida. So let's see what case we're in here. 2024-007813 HDRB 1666 Argordo Road. Consistent with staff's recommendations, I would move that the project be approved with the following conditions. That the guest house be modified, the plans for the guest house be modified to reduce the battering of the walls, particularly on the proposed east elevation, or to eliminate the battering, but it would be fine if they're just made more minimal. And that the stone work of the exterior chimney be modified so that the stonework is either entirely replaced with stucco or reduced in amount. And so in particular, that the stone is not showing on the upper portion that would be exposed to the road. And that chimney also be reduced in terms of the battering of the two exterior walls on the north and south faces of the exterior chimney. I don't really have any particular thoughts on the structure in the back, so if another board member, I'll just make the motion as just stated and approved in all other respects. But I'm happy to hear a proposed amendment with respect to the structure in the rear.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have a second and or any friendly amendments?
Gilad Madrano will second, with a friendly amendment, if I may, that the final width of the bridge will not exceed what is shown on the drawings today, which the owner has indicated is around 5 feet wide.
Accepted as friendly. I'd like to also go back to the stonework. If the applicant decides to retain the stonework, that all stonework be harmonious with the significant stone structure and the retaining wall, and not be overly contemporary and professional in appearance. And that revised plans be submitted for staff approval. I think that's
Point of
everything.
discussion.
Wait, sure.
Do we want to add any language about it not being a facade, the stone?
Oh, it has to be actual stone for sure. Yes. Has to be, the structure itself has to be stone. The entire chimney has to be made of stone as opposed to a facade of stone.
Okay, pretty thorough motion, hopefully with enough guidance for staff and for the applicant. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Aguilar Madrano,
Yes.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Benvenu,
Yes.
the motion has passed.
Thank you. Let's move on to, thank you to the applicant. Good luck with your project. We're going to move on to 626 Gomez Road. As a primary facade designation. Lanny, this is your case, is your applicant? Here.
Yes, she's actually here.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Happens.
That's where I saw them. Okay, this is case 2024-8514 for 626 Gomez Road for primary facade designation. 626 Gomez is located at the intersection of Gomez Road and Rael Road. The single-family Pueblo Revival style residence at 626 Gomez is listed as contributing to the downtown and east side historic district, though primary facades have not yet been designated. 2 historical surveys exist for the property, one completed in 1982 and another in 1995. Both list the property as contributing to the district. The original construction date is listed as 1935 in the 1982 historic survey and as by 1942 in the 1995 historic survey. Evident in the historic survey plans, an addition was constructed on the west elevation between 1982 and 1995. The historic survey states that the addition at the rear has little effect on the historic character of the original building, since it is not noticeable from the street and is clearly different from the original portion of the structure. In 1998, the 2-foot yard wall was removed and replaced with a stucco finished block yard wall with a height that varies from 6 feet to 7.5 feet high. Additionally, in 1998, a glass block window was replaced. I should say a glass block window replaced another window, but the opening and dimensions of the opening remain the same. The windows are not the original windows as they were replaced in the 1980s and 2000s. The aluminum clad windows on the north elevation of the western addition were replaced in the 80s, and the rest were replaced in the early 2000s with metal clad wood windows on the north and south elevations. Around the same time, the original porch was removed and a roof awning that ran the entire west elevation of the addition was replaced with a modern galvanized metal drip edge. I would like to point out the staff report was not terribly clear, but the windows that were replaced were only on the newer addition, not on the original building. So the wood windows that are at the top, on the original building are original to the building. The west facade was altered with additions without a permit in 2023. The work that was in progress was stopped and was issued a citation by the city. And above is this is the west facade prior to the 2023 alterations. This is the west facade now with those 2023 alterations. Those are going to be coming back later for approval. In addition to the residence, there is a shed located on the property. The shed is mentioned in the 1982 historic inventory and may well be eligible for status, though the exact date of installation is unknown. The shed is a simple pitched roof frame structure with wood shingles and stucco. The door is wood with a single diamond-shaped light. The homeowners applied for a downgrade to the status of the residence in 2022, but the case was never heard. No other cases were located in the Historic Preservation Office files. Today, the applicant requests status confirmation and primary facade designation of the residential building, yard wall, and status designation of the rear shed structure. Staff recommends the historic status of the structure be maintained as contributing with the original east or facade 2 elevation as the primary facade. The yard wall be designated non-contributing, and the historic status of the shed be designated as non-contributing per SFCC section 14-5.2C designation of significant and contributing structures. I will point out that staff report does read excluding the non-historic porch. This is an error, as the non-historic porch is on the opposite side of the building of the recommended primary facade. The porch on the east facade is actually original to the structure. And staff would recommend it as part of the primary facade. It's time for questions.
Thank you, Lanny. Board members, any questions for Lanny before we move to the applicant? Member Aguilar-Marjano.
Chair Guida. Lanny, did you say that one of the porches was constructed in 2023 and that we'd be seeing that soon? Does that mean it was constructed without the board's approval?
Yes.
Okay.
That was on the west facade.
And do you know why that? I'm just curious because if they came in 2022, they would have known it needed approval if they built it in 2023, but it happened anyway.
It happened anyway. I'm not really sure what happened there.
Thank you, Lanny.
Member Benvenu.
Chair Guida. Okay, so I had one question about the porch, but it's been clarified. What about the glass block windows on what's proposed to be the primary facade? It seems like there might be a discrepancy between the staff report and the something else in the packet. I think it might have come from the applicant or was there a HDRB? At any rate, I think the staff report says that the glass blocks are not historic, obviously, but that the window opening is.
Correct.
And I think that there's something in the application, probably from the applicant at a prior, maybe it was the failed status review several years ago that said that there was no opening in that wall and that not only glass block, but the entire opening was added. Do you have any knowledge on that?
My understanding from the previous case file was that the opening was existing and remained the same as.
Okay.
It was just the window itself that was replaced.
Okay, great. I guess we'll see if I'm mistaken or the applicant has a different point of view. Thanks.
Member Mather.
I have to excuse myself. Forgive me, y'all.
No problem.
Fortunately, without Amanda, we don't have a quorum.
I understand.
We may have to finish.
Yes. I think we may have to do that. Okay. I'm sorry, City Attorney Rubelee, any comments? Our understanding in the room is that we do not presently have a quorum.
Somehow you got demoted. Frank, you can unmute.
Vice Chair Guidi, can you hear me all right now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm concerned that we're down to 3 members and we have to have 4 to have a quorum, and we really can't conduct any business. Did Member Mather say that she would be back momentarily? Can we just?
She will not be back. She had to excuse herself.
Well, at this time, we don't have a quorum. Let me double check a rule here, but I think that I don't think we can carry on any further business. We could just take a recess while I look at a rule.
Sure. We'll do that. Folks, I apologize. We'll take maybe a couple minute recess. Heather, we're on a recess while Frank's checking. Do we have any other avenues to a quorum, to another member calling in or anything like that?
Well, there's nothing that prohibits that. We just have to have 4 people attending. And I'm taking a look at resolution number 2009-20, which is a section of the rules and procedures for city committees. A majority of the members shall constitute a quorum. Committee members shall have the privilege. Let's see. It's Robert's Rules of Order that indicates that we do have to have a quorum. A quorum is 50% of the members. We have a 7-member board. I know we have a vacancy, but
and Frank, I guess that's my question. We do have a vacancy. This is presently a 6-member board.
Well,
we're not a majority
3,
though.
Yeah, 3 is still not a majority. That's
okay.
That's the issue. So, if we could have somebody else call in, if we want to take a recess and see if we can get somebody else to participate. Without that and without Member Mather's return, we don't have a quorum. I think it would be legally defective to proceed at this time.
Okay. Let's do that. We're going to take a 10-minute recess, see if we could reach another board member, see if we could finish up tonight. If not, then we'll come back. I don't know. Let's ask Frank about that. Frank, so before we recess, without a quorum, may we review informational items?
If you're not going to informational, can you give me an example? What if you're not going to take a vote? I think it'd be okay.
Yeah, so this would be for 275 East Alameda under staff communications, which was an informational presentation. Would we be able to do that without a quorum?
I don't think the board can conduct any business, and I think that that would be perilous. I don't think we should. Let me keep looking here. Yeah, I would advise against that. It's, all I have is unless otherwise specified in the committee's enabling legislation, a majority of the regular committee members shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of official business. I suppose there's the argument that an information session is not transaction of official business, but there's really no definition of that. I think the rest of the agenda would need to be postponed unless we can find another board member to participate.
Hey Frank, this is Dan. With regard to applicants who wish to present just for informational items, does that also mean that people who want to speak or their concerns, do they still have to be sworn in or not?
I think it has to be postponed until we have a meeting with a quorum.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think most people are, or nearly all, everyone's back in the room. I apologize for the inconvenience tonight. These things happen. Board members are public servants. So I apologize for the rest of the folks who have a case before us tonight. That's 626 Gomez Road, 544 Canyon Road, 753 Acequia Madre, and 636 Garcia. Maybe what we're going to do is move those cases forward to a date certain, postpone those to a date certain. The next hearing is July 23rd. And those applicants can just check in with staff to be on that next agenda. We are going to, even though we do not have a quorum, the board feels that we do not need one for an informational session. Members of the public are here tonight for a noticed item. They can speak and give feedback. The board members here can give feedback on the informational item 275 East Alameda. And so our recommendation is that we move forward with that presentation before ending for the night. So apologies again, folks. If you care to stay for that 275 East Alameda presentation, please do. Yes.
Guida, thank you. So you're saying that the cases that remain will automatically be postponed or rescheduled to the July 23rd meeting?
Correct.
That's a date certain.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so staff, may we have the presentation for 275 East Alameda? Yes.
Our next official attempt at full quorum lady possibly the 23rd.
No, we're saying on the informational presentation, which does not require a vote, but from this board, we do not need a quorum, so we can proceed.
Of course, for us, also want to present again that possible opportunity for the fuller one. Love to have a nice run now. All my question, could we also be on the 23rd?
Well, I would recommend that if your concern is not having the full board here, I would recommend making a decision now, whether you want to be heard now or later, not both.
Later.
Okay.
But we'd be happy to run through it, but you don't want to do that?
I think in the interest of time and, you know, and having one presentation and one set of feedback for you, one opportunity for the public to comment, it's smarter to do it once, not twice.
It's been wonderful. Thank you for seeing me tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Yes.
yes. Okay.
Great.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. So we'll postpone that as well. Do we need a motion to, I mean, we don't have a quorum, so we can't really vote on stuff, but
Motion to adjourn.
well, just to either postpone those cases or to adjourn or any other items.
As we cannot vote the proceedings of the meeting, we'll go to the 23rd. And notice has been provided and that this meeting is being recorded. So we will just postpone.
Okay, that sounds good. All right.
Do you agree?
I would go ahead and vote to adjourn, just, I guess, just for the record.
What about for the postponing of the cases?
Same. I don't know what choice you have, you know.
Okay, let's, we have a motion for that. John?
Thank you, Chair. We'd all make a motion that all unheard cases tonight, as previously delineated, will be moved to the July 23, 2024 meeting, which has already been scheduled, and that we adjourn.
Aguilar Madrano, second.
Roll call vote.
Member Benvenu. Member Aguilar Madrano.
Yes.
Okay, and with that, we are adjourned.